Return to Glory podcast, September 15th. Huskers are 3-0, coming off a 34-3 win against the Northern Iowa Panthers. Hunter Zarbanicki, Austin Rose, Dakota Freetag, all wearing red today, boys. Dak's wearing the new merch, the new t-shirt.
Representing. There's a lot of people asking me about it last night when I had it on. We're growing.
Sure. Promotion.
I mean, I might have brought it up, but
Dak, you might just earn a promotion on this podcast now that you're officially a Husker fan over an Oklahoma fan.
That's what I hear.
Yeah,
you set me up for that one.
If you haven't listened to it, it's worth a listen. Go back and listen to our tailgate pod from Saturday. Got Dak pretty good, and let's just say he knows more players on Nebraska than he does for his so-claimed Sooners.
That probably went exactly how you thought it was going to go.
No, you actually did worse than I thought you would do. like better on the Nebraska side and worse on the OU side. I was predicting it to be like close. It wasn't.
It wasn't close.
And your first OU player was Casey Thompson.
Then, I did that on purpose.
And then you also thought Jason Tatum played for Oklahoma, so that was also good.
Taylor Tatum, Jason Tatum, same thing. Taylor Tatum's a better player.
We're 3-0 for the first time since
2016.
2016.
A good year of college. Mike Riley.
It's a weird feeling. I talked to a few people afterwards, like we don't really know how to react right now. I mean, obviously we're rated. Illinois ratings just came out as rated as well. It'll be the first ranked matchup in Memorial Stadium in quite some time. The final score, I mean, I think speaks for itself in this game, 34-3. For these recap episodes, as a reminder, we'll just go through some key headlines and some key talking points. But like my biggest thing watching this game and then hearing fans around me talk and have some of the moans here or there, and then after the game, you know, the score was what it was. I'm just like, who really cares? Like, that was a game that, like, yeah, we won. I really am not going to read into too much here. Yes, we could probably nitpick a billion things, and I'm sure a lot of people are like, that's what we do. That's what we're good at. We probably will still end up doing that, but it is one of those things that I just don't care. Like, let's move on. Let's get to Big Ten play. I think we were better than this team, and we knew going into it, and there was some good, there was some bad, and everything in between. But we did what we needed to do to beat a FCS team. I think it was our 15th all-time win against FCS opponents, 15-0. So, yeah, like that high-level thoughts, that's where my head's at.
I agree. Like I obviously watching the game when you're like, oh my gosh, what are you guys doing? That's a totally different energy than after the game, because in the game you could just it's just, you can imagine, you can see it like, oh, Northern Illinois is going to score a touchdown here, and all of a sudden it's 7-7, and those goes to the pass kind of creep up on you. But yeah, people are going to complain about, oh, they look more physical and better, but then you look at then you point to the scoreboard, it's like they only scored 3 points. Like, let's not. Sure, they might have moved the ball between the 20s, but they only scored 3.
Dak, let me ask you this. Is Northern Iowa better than UTEP?
Ooh. Yes. I would say yeah. It wasn't like they moved the ball up and down on you, but they actually could get some momentum in the run game and stuff. UTEP couldn't do anything. I mean, both of them have a shitty quarterback, so it's just a wash there. But I think Northern Iowa can run the ball better.
But to that point, I was actually somewhat impressed by Aiden Dunn. I mean, yeah, his stats weren't great, but I just thought he managed the game well. Obviously, his couple of picks were not great throws, but I thought he, for an FCS quarterback, like did a great job of managing the game, and he's got some legs under him. I thought he made a lot of correct reads. They ran a lot more zone read than I thought they were going to. I didn't watch any film on them, but I thought they were going to be maybe a little more of a power
That's
run
kind of what
team.
I thought too.
But
Yeah.
they were still shotgun, but it was still heavy inside run, which I think is a good prep as we head into Big Ten play.
At any point during that game, were you guys worried you're going to lose?
No.
Though, I mean, that first drive I had, like I said, those ghosts of like that anxiety of like, oh my gosh, it's just gonna be a 7-7 game after they had a 10-minute drive and they were down on the 5-yard line, and it's like, oh boy, that's not how you want it to go. Where they shortened the game up a little bit, get a little momentum, zap a little bit of the energy out of the stadium, but I really wasn't worried about us losing.
Yeah, that wasn't the game you hang up in the Raptors, but
No.
I mean, you got to win. You got to, and you wonder if they just played it vanilla because you're going to Big Ten play. You don't want to give away all you got.
Yeah, like I said, I really don't. I mean, I don't really care. Like 34-3, like great.
Right.
You'll take any win you can get.
The whole fourth quarter was second stringers for the most part.
I didn't have many expectations, I guess, going into it being about any different than that. Like Rule, as we talked about, is not the type of coach to go out and we thought maybe he'd let Dylan Raiola just go a little bit. But it just came, he did a little bit, I guess. We threw it maybe a little more, and our run game was a little bit stifled at times, but like for the most part, it was about what we expected from an overall game. The only thing that really caught me off guard, and this is leading into my like first headline topic, is, and it's more of a shout out to you and I in their game plan, but the time of possession.
Yeah.
It just felt like they had the ball, and they did for so long. I believe it finished like 38-21 or something like that, is very close to that.
Yep.
It did. And that's props to them. And sometimes you say, okay, well, that means they must, have controlled the game. Kind of. I mean, they did get some first downs, but it didn't result in points.
They ran the ball really well between the 20s. And Rule said in his conference, he's like, hey, that's a veteran head coach over there. He knows exactly when you go in and play a better opponent, you don't want them to have the ball. Like our offense, first 3 drives, we're just scoring at will.
Mm-hmm.
Like if we keep the ball out of their hands, they were milking the clock all the way down to the 0 every possession.
And even when they were down too, like their chance at winning that game was for us to make mistakes, right? And their coach thought that they could maybe be as physical as us up front, and I would argue that maybe they did at some point. Mm-hmm. But they did. They even when they were down 24-3, they ran the clock down inside 5. When they were down 27-3 or 24-3, and they had a 4th and 2 or 4th and 3 from like midfield, they're like, "Yeah, let's just punt it." Like they knew that they had to just play a very smart football game, and yeah, it resulted in the score that it did. And speaking of time of possession, then our offense only put up 38 against Northern Iowa. Well, guess what? We didn't punt one time. We were efficient when we had the ball. Did we have big plays? We had a couple. We had 2 drives that didn't result in points. The interception, and then the fourth down. So, like, yeah, I guess the one frustrating in the second half was not scoring when we were at 1st and goal there. But for the most part, like, we were efficient on offense, and again did what we needed to do. That score reflects exactly how the game went and how I expected it to go, with a veteran coach on the other side that controlled the game.
Yep. And people are going to complain about the defense, but penalty wise, we were much cleaner than we were last week. Only 4 penalties for 40-some yards. If people are going to gripe about the second half last week and be like, oh my gosh, we had so many penalties. Well, this game we had 1/3 as many penalties. Didn't hear anyone say anything about that.
Nope. Dak, where do you want to go? Take us to headline number 2.
I guess my first one was about playing vanilla that game. Do you guys think that they didn't show anything, basically, the Huskers, and they just played it vanilla and tried to get out of there with a win?
Yeah, and then I think a lot of they had a lot more rotation guys in this game than they did last game. Like
Yeah.
just on like the even at the beginning of the game, not even talking fourth quarter, like it was like, oh, he's already in the game kind of things. Like Ty Robinson's not in there, Nash isn't in there right now. I think that was probably partly rest from last week because we have a short week coming up against Illinois, and then the other part's just getting reps against a team that you believe to be a lower talent level.
Here's my take on this. I think every coach has a good idea at any sport when you're playing a team that you're going to beat 99 out of 100 times, if not 100 out of 100 times. I think Rule knew that. And after watching film, not saying that you're going to publicly ever say that, you're never going to tell your players that, but as a coaching staff, like you talk about it, like this is a team that we will win. Like we would have to have our whole team get hurt for and have to forfeit before we lose a game like this. I think Rule knew that without saying it. And I do think that then leads to maybe the more vanilla play or playing a lot of guys. Like you want to keep guys that maybe aren't getting a lot of snaps in the bigger games. You want to give them their opportunity now and give them a chance to make a play. I mean, look at our receiving stats. I think we had 15 guys caught a pass this week.
Yeah.
Like we made it a point to get the ball to a lot of people just to please players and families and whatnot. Now, I don't know if that's right or wrong, but in a game like that, like I think you have the ability to do that. Now, as far as keeping it vanilla, Dak, I actually think Rule was very strategic, and I think schematically they had a lot of stuff put in this week to get other people to watch and wonder, okay, will they run that against us? A couple of examples. The obvious one, Harbor got in and played snaps at quarterback, running back, fullback, receiver. Like the full Taysom Hill packages. I'm wearing my Saints hat here. He got what we thought we could see at some point this year from him, and now it's all on film. So I don't know how much teams are really going to read into that and watch it, but you know it's out there. A couple of other just like small things that we did that at the time were like, ooh, that was probably not a great play call. Was one, the Dylan Raiola naked boot. Like, again, I think that might have been first or second and goal at that time from the 2 or 3. But by doing that, and even though we lost a couple of yards on it, now teams know that DN or linebacker, whoever's responsible for contain, like you cannot bite down. And teams will be coached now in the future to make sure that we don't naked boot out of it. And all that does is now tells us as a coaching staff saying, okay, they're going to have a guy covering that so we can now exploit it in a different way. Like I think it's all very schematically planned on stuff like that to get people to watch the film. So I don't know. I think in a game like this, that was the game plan, knowing that we were going to win regardless. So whatever we could get out there before we play a team like even Illinois on Friday, for them to watch and say, okay, that was different. That was a wrinkle. That was interesting. Because our run game, I would say, was very vanilla. But what else did we do? We threw a reverse in there. We threw a little orbit motion with a trap underneath it that didn't go for anything. But very strategic schemes that we were designing for this game to, I think, get it on film.
Yeah, you don't.
Don't go for it.
You got it. You got
I
it.
was just gonna say, yeah, like a lot of people were involved. It didn't feel like we had to do like on offense. We wanted to move the ball. We did move the ball. It's like, oh, we need to get a first down here. Let's do this. Outside of the fourth down, it wasn't super imposing UNI's defense against our offense. So a lot of people ran the ball, a lot of people caught the ball, and we ran it with pretty good efficiency. We had a couple big plays, and last couple of years, what do we want? We want big plays. We haven't had that in a while. We had a 59-yard pass and two 35-plus yard runs. So I think they did what they needed to do. It's a little tune-up.
Fact check it. It was only 10 guys, not 15.
That's the kind of game where you just want to get out of there as healthy as possible and get out there with a win. That's basically all you want to do.
Yep. Yeah, like when you hear him at the press conference, like Butler didn't play, still a little banged up from last week, but he could have played this week if we needed him to. It's like,
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, so
you just don't want to waste him for that.
let's go there with our next topic here, conversation. So you mentioned Jamari Butler didn't play, more of a game time decision. He warmed up. I agree. He probably plays if he
Probably plays Big Ten
plays.
opponent. Yeah.
But he was out. Micah Mazuka, he was not around, and we don't know what's going on. I don't even think people maybe saw him on the sidelines. Um, Henry Latovsky started at right guard for us from the get go. It does not sound like it's injury related. It could be something else.
The
Rules,
rumor, I
there's
don't know
more
if you saw
now.
this last week, but apparently fourth quarter last week he got pulled because he was playing badly and got upset and tried to start a fight with Dom, or not Dominic, but yeah, Dom Riola. And so he did not play this week, coach's decision, in team suspension sort of thing. But that also does kind of line up with what Rule said at the press conference of we're not talking about that now. He didn't play coach's decision.
Yep. Yeah, that's interesting. I don't know what we're going to hear out of that, if any. I think he's definitely a guy that helps us on the offensive line and brings that nasty mentality. But yeah, you got to somewhat keep it under control. But for a game but even then, we're playing a Big Ten team or a top 25 team. He's playing
Probably,
well, I think.
yes.
Now,
I
there's a
agree.
fine line of holding standards, right, in your program and your coach and what you allow and don't allow. Who knows how severe it was if that rumor is true of whatever was said. But this was obviously a game that he was not needed. But it is. It's just another interesting headline to talk about. And yeah, Makai Bayer didn't play the first half, first targeting penalty. A little concerned they were going to call that targeting there in the second half. Luckily, they didn't. Yeah, we played a lot of guys. Like that's the bottom line, I think, when it comes to personnel. And back to what we said at the beginning, it is not a game that I think there's a whole lot to nitpick about just because of who we were playing and what the game really meant.
No, the only thing that worried you is they're moving the ball, they're running the ball, and like if there was a mobile quarterback, you didn't like what you saw. But again, like we said, it's probably a product of we weren't as revved up for this game. We weren't playing all of our best players all the time, and we might have been playing a little more conservatively on defense.
Boy, online you think the world's ending with
Yeah, you
Husker
would.
football. Holy shit, people are freaking out.
Ranked for 1 week, and all of a sudden it's like, why are we not Georgia? No, Georgia didn't look good, but why are we not Georgia?
Yeah. Yeah, before we get back to Huskers, how about that, Hunter?
What?
You said Kentucky no shot.
Yeah, I was wrong.
I
I was wrong. I thought Kentucky.
But
All
yeah,
right, Austin, where do you want to go next?
Well, we covered a lot of things, but I'm going to say kicking. We hit 2 field goals, and it was Alvano. I was wrong. I thought Hole was going to be our kicker, and he was not. They stuck with Alvano, and they put him out there twice for all the extra points. Oh, not all the extra points. I think Hole did get that last touchdown extra point. So it was nice to see them get 2 field goals, but I am shocked that it was not Hole.
Yeah, there also were short field goals again. One was
Yeah.
okay. I wanted to see the longer one
Yeah.
on. I think it would have been about a 44 yarder or 47 yarder, maybe something like that. Yeah, his longest one again this game was a 31 yarder, and then we had another one that was basically a extra point. It is still just one of those question marks that we still just don't know. And yeah, we thought maybe Hole would come in and after what happened last week, but sticking with Alvano, I have a feeling that this week it could come down to, who can make and execute their special teams, specifically field goals. And Illinois has got a good kicker. He made a couple, I think, in that Kansas game, and I haven't watched or heard, but that's what I've been hearing is that their kicker's pretty solid. So I think Albano's going to need to be on his A game, and on top of that, like our snappers, I think, if I heard correctly, Rule said we sub someone different for the short one. I think the field goal, and I guess long snapper for punting. We never punted, so that was that.
Not a lot of work for Bushini this week. No
Not at
Bushini.
all. We'll talk about it Wednesday, but this Illinois game is tougher than what we all thought coming into the year now. And with Alvon going out there, you're not 100% confident still in him kicking.
Right. If you're chasing three, you're
and it'll come down to that in these Big Ten games.
Agreed. But are you confident in him, Dak?
No, not at all.
That
other guy must suck.
You got to start using the term "we" instead of "you guys" and "you."
Husker
you
fan.
You are a Husker fan. You proved it on Saturday. You can't go back on that.
I was just joking around, you guys.
Hey, not only that, now we won't spoil it. You have to listen to the end of the podcast too. I make him go and listen into the tailgate pod. That was one of the better endings we've had.
Yeah, it's a good time.
My next point I want to talk about here, and this is just from going in person, is the excitement and engagement from our crowd.
A little bit up this year.
This game, now, before the game, I thought, like, tailgating wise, I was, it doesn't seem quite as poppin'. Like, everybody put it all into last week and taking a week off. So that might have been the case. But the game and the atmosphere for playing an FCS school, and yeah, we're 2-0 and we're ranked, like, that helps a lot of it. I was very impressed, one, how early people were in there again. I mean, I think I was in there probably 20, 25 minutes, and it was pretty filled already. Two, the amount of standing and just crowd volume, even when we were up 24-3, and people had probably opportunities to leave if they wanted to, because the game was pretty much, you knew it was going to happen at that point. So how long people stayed, I think that speaks to where Husker fans are at right now. Like, we all missed this.
We're ready.
And we're ready for it to just really explode and take off. And I think we are moving in that direction. So yeah, I just wanted to say I'm very impressed by the crowd and getting up for a game like this, and not just, showing up for the first quarter. It was, for the most part, the whole game, including all up until that last drive when we needed to get a stop to hold them out of the end zone. We did.
I can't speak to, on TV. It sounded loud. I mean, it's also kind of hard. Big Ten does a better job than NBC did with the noise, because NBC, you couldn't hear anything in the Colorado. Like, the crowd didn't really sound existent. There were some moments on the BTN broadcast where like, okay, it sounds loud in there, but I agree.
Because you want to listen to Colt McCoy.
Colt McCoy. He got hit. Yeah, he got some rough on our reviews. Hopefully he's not online too much, because that was rough.
Yeah, it was louder than what I thought. The tailgate atmosphere, like you said, was pretty dead. It picked up towards the end, but it was louder than what I thought for Northern Iowa game.
Yeah.
I can't speak to it. Wasn't there. How's that valve? Is that a company thing?
Dak, any other topics, things you want to hit on before we move on?
Oh, not that I can think of. That's about it. You guys covered most of them.
Did we hit all your 3 to 5 headlines?
Yeah, we already hit most of them. Mostly it was just about how the game was closer than I thought. People freaking out online, and then you go in on that, Hunter. What do you think about that? People freaking out.
I think it's a good topic to like. That was why I opened with the who cares and like let's just move on from this game because we've gone so quickly from forgetting that we are not a good football program in the past 10 to 15 years. Like it
We
has
lose
been
that game.
bad.
We lose that game 4 years ago.
Yeah, I don't know if we lose, but like
It's much
not,
worse than
scared.
it was.
not for us is I mean that's a 28-18 game. I mean that's not one that we did what we did this week. So I just think people need to take this step back. Like this game does not. There's so many little things that I think the coaching staff knew that because we were better than them, we don't need to do this, this, and this, and this, and this, and we don't need to take risks here and here and here. Like, let's just win this game and like you guys said, stay healthy. That's the big thing in games like this. You don't want to see a big season-ending injury go down in a game that I'm not going to say it doesn't matter, but for the grand scheme of things, it really doesn't. That's why I have them in UTEP as my 11 and 12 importance, solely because of the fact of we were going to win those games. I didn't think they were going to cause us problems. Whereas in the past, those games were of higher importance because we didn't know if we could win them. And then we said, if we lose these games, all hell is going to break loose. So I think, yeah, let's not. I mean, Dak, what was some of the bigger things you saw about concerns?
Just people were saying, and oh, basically you got to beat that team better, or you're not going to be able to win any Big Ten games playing like that. Basically, everything like that.
Good summary.
Yeah, that was about it.
We didn't look like Notre Dame out there against Purdue. I'll give you that.
No,
Nope.
and again, I'll go back to the time of possession thing. Like, what else did you want us to do on offense, right? Like, we were efficient with the possessions that we got. They had the ball for 2/3 of the game.
Right. Outside of one less turnover, that's it.
The one, after saying all that, the one, I guess, somewhat concerning thing, but I'm not reading into it and thinking anything of it at this point is the lack of, I guess, run game we were able to get, especially late in the second half. But again, I mean, I think Northern Iowa was probably stacking the box because they knew that we were going to run the ball. They had some big boys. I mean, I'm not going to say they were athletic big boys, but they had some big boys on both the offensive and defensive lines. And, maybe there's a question mark on that. And then another one I've heard, probably what Dak saw too, was maybe some tackling issues or concerns. Again, one game, if you have to say anything that Tony White's defenses have done in the past 2 years, has been rallying to the football and tackling. Like, we have been very, very good at that, especially compared to previous years. We've had some very poor tackling years. So I'm not looking at this one game and going, oh, what was that? They're a bad team. I just think it's some different guys that we're in. And I mean, both on the offensive line and defensive line and secondary tackling. I just think there's a lot of things that we probably will not see against a typical Big Ten team. So I'm not reading into any of the negative, nitpicky criticisms from this week.
I agree.
Yeah, I gave Northern Iowa no respect. My bad. They're a better football team than I thought.
I will. I will say
56-0.
These comments could change. I mean, who knows? Like, maybe in a couple of weeks, our run game may struggle against Illinois and Rutgers and whoever else. But I think for right now, there's no reason to panic based on what we've seen. Last thing we want to do here on this episode, every about 3 games, we'll do it about 3 or 4 times throughout the year. We're going to re-level set our expectations. We did this last year. We talked at the beginning of the year of where we thought we could end up record-wise, ceilings, floors, based on our schedule, based on the status of our players, where our team's at. I think a lot of times when you talk about your favorite sports team, what you're doing is you're level setting it, you're discussing it with how you expect the team to perform. So people that have really, really high expectations are going to usually be a lot more critical. And sometimes your expectations can be short term, of just was what we should be doing this week. Sometimes they can be over 4 or 5 years over the lifespan of the head coach. Like, I think there's a lot of ways to look at it. But I want us to each just talk about where our heads at of the program in general for this year. I guess moving forward, where it's headed, and kind of give a new record or a ceiling floor type prediction at the end. So Dak, we'll let you start.
You got out of the first 3 games, basically how you wanted to get out of them, 3-0. Now I think the schedule is tougher than what we expected. Rutgers looks pretty decent. Purdue, who the hell knows what happened there? I don't know what happened in that game. Anyway, Illinois looks pretty good. I think everybody had you guys penciling in for sure 7-0 after a 3-0 start. Not so fast. Next week's gonna be tough. You play that son of a bitch Brett Bielema. Tough coach. But anyway, I still think you go 7-0 before Ohio State. I think this is about the only game you can trip up on, basically.
How do you see the rest of the year going? I mean, record wise, and has that changed?
No, I think. I can't remember what I said at the beginning of the year. Anyway, I think you lose to Ohio State.
We all took the under 7.5.
Yeah, I think you for sure lose to Ohio State, and probably you lose to USC too. And then I drop 1 or 2 in there probably. So not much different than what I had at the beginning of the year.
But it is better. I mean, what you just said.
Yeah.
7-5.
I think I said 8-4.
I mean, you just said we're going to go 7-0, or you thought we could. So
yeah.
And then we're losing 3, so that's 9. Yeah, it's only 9 games.
9-3.
Drinking that
Boom.
Kool-Aid.
Mark it down.
I kind of agree with Dak. Illinois definitely looks more challenging than we expected, but also I guess going into the year, I thought Colorado was going to be more challenging than what it ended up being. Where I'm 3-0 is not shocking. As far as a program goes, you feel pretty good. It seems like everyone's bought in. Recruits are like, yeah, you can feel the culture in this. You start to look at the roster and you get a little bit worried about next year, and you can just kind of feel that step back coming, especially because I feel like we're ahead of schedule and we have a shit ton of seniors. And when next year hits, it's probably going to be a tougher schedule, and we're going to lose all of our starting offensive line and starting defensive line. Might sting a little. So I think we're ahead of schedule. I think it's going to hurt next year. As far as the season prediction goes, I thought we were going to be 7-5. Probably bump that up to 8-4. I really think we're going to lose 4. I think we lose to Ohio State. I think we used to lose to USC. I think Iowa and Illinois are going to be problems. Rutgers could be sneaky good too.
Okay, so I like the next year thought already. I my mind hasn't gone there yet, but I guess it does play a factor into where what I think about this year. Guys, this might be bold of where I'm at, but it was just one game of Colorado, one big game of us winning. I guess in combination of just playing smarter, playing complementary football that we keep hearing over and over, limiting our turnovers. I think we had the one fumble, and then the interception this last week was what it was. Guys, I'm going to be disappointed if we're not 9-3. I have my expectations have changed a lot after that Colorado game, and that was one that I just need to see us perform in a big game. I feel like the mindset of the team is in a good place. We should beat Illinois at home.
What'd you have beginning of the year?
I think we all had 7-5.
I mean, I was 7-5. I mean, and I've talked a lot about being pessimistic, right? I'm not saying 9-3. I mean, it is an optimistic pick, but I'm just saying from the team that we have, and then looking at our schedule, I know, Dak, what you said is one way of looking at it. I do think Illinois maybe is a little better, but I don't think they're far off from where I thought they would be. I don't think Rutgers is anywhere different than I thought they would be. We get both of them at home. The Purdue game was a little bit scary on the road. They're horrible. Indiana's the one that I'm
Gary.
holding a little bit because they looked good so far. I also don't know if they've played anybody. I think USC has looked better. We know what Ohio State's got. Guys, Wisconsin's not good. I don't think Iowa's very good. I think we can win both of those. Those two are, I would say, win one, lose one.
I think I feel better. I agree
oh,
with you. I think I agree. I feel better about our ceiling. I feel the 10-2 ceiling feels real.
UCLA, they're horrible. So
You got
I don't know.
you got to feel better about the end of your schedule now.
I don't want to call it a ceiling, I guess, but like we have the players and I think the mindset right now to go 9-3, if not 10-2. And a 7-5 season at this point would feel disappointing to me. It would. I think Illinois or sorry, I get my teams right. UCLA and Purdue, those are both gimme wins now. I really do. The way that they have looked so far, they have not been good.
We're not good at the program to have gimme wins.
That's what I'm saying. But that's what I'm saying now, Austin. I say we
think we are good enough.
That's where my mind is flipped. Like I think that after what we've shown, like those are going to be close to gimme wins now. This might be bold for me to say that now after I guess seeing one game, but I think like those games are wins, and if they're not, like yeah, my heart's probably going to be broken. And then yeah, these other home games we should win. Like we're healthy, pending maybe a couple of these news announcements that we're waiting to hear. I think Raiola is everything that we were hoping for and maybe more. Remember my prediction with him. I thought he was going to come out and be Mr. Over aggressive and try to put up the stats and the numbers. And if he didn't, he was going to get pissed and pouty. He manages himself, his demeanor. It's modeled after rules in my mind. And that has been so relieving to see. And I think that's going to result in a lot of wins. Like he's going to get better throughout the years. Maybe that doesn't sound like it could happen, but I think it will. So we should go 9-3. Like we should.
Wow, Hunter. Look at you putting on that.
I'm
fan cap, Mr. Pessimism out the door.
I'm just
10-2. You're talking playoffs?
If we lose to some of these teams, I mean, you'll hear Mr. Negativity come back out. But right now, like just looking at our opponents, it is all set up right now for us to. I mean, 10-2, I think would probably put you playoff conversation. I'm not expecting that, but I do think 9-3 is a good expectation goal. And 7-5, I'd be disappointed with now. I would. 8-4 would be like, okay, like that was all right. But 9-3, I think should be where we should be thinking this team should end up at, especially with the way some of these other teams have looked. Again, Indiana is the one asterisk I have in there that I'm like, yeah, I don't know what's going to happen that game right before we play Ohio State. But
UCLA might be the worst team on your schedule.
Or Purdue. They're both horrible.
UCLA is awful. Welcome to Big Ten.
All right, we'll be back Wednesday previewing the Fighting Illini. Mert Bielema. Go Big Red.
UVR.
Let's change up. Skol 2-0.